Welcome back for part 2 of this OG roundtable. Decades upon decades of experience being shared by these industry leaders. The next part of this conversation is straight fire. So many amazing lessons shared by Adrian, Brad, and Glenn. We're talking sales, we're talking marketing, and we're talking about how to adapt to a changing economy. All that and more coming up next. You're listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Let me ask you guys, on the topic of generating revenue, like we've already concluded that marketing is an important part. And the two of you want to ramp up. One of you just goes full steam ahead with marketing all the time. The focus of the marketing is what really? Is the main focus driving leads? Is the main focus branding and positioning of your company? Is the main focus awareness? What are you trying to achieve first and foremost with these investments that you do?
For us, it's definitely branding. I mean, we're not selling landscapes, we're selling lifestyles. That's really the kind of clients I think that we all go after ultimately. I mean, we also do it because we love to do this. It's a passion to enhance someone's lifestyle. So we're pushing a lot on the branding. We've always been big on that, and the lifestyle, and just simple marketing that shows either the work that we're doing or showing the end results of a project. And even the people, we're doing more of that in terms of branding, showing the kind of people that work with us on our team. But it's definitely pushing a brand across to a client, because in a way it's to let clients gain that trust or the value or the word I'm looking for. Yeah, the trust and the value in what you do, so that if we do hit a recession on the other side, again, you become top of mind. They're familiar with your brand. It's very professional, and they want to do business with people like that, especially the staying power to become almost like an expert in the industry. That, you've been around so many years, and you're out there and they see what they can have. But we really started switching our branding a while ago more to our advertising, if you will, the marketing, on pushing a lifestyle. The feeling that you get being out in that space, or your staycationing at home, or luxury landscaping in your backyard, or luxury living in your own backyard. But brand is something that we feel, and it also does attract the right people, because with social media, we've noticed a lot of the potential candidates that we get have seen the social media more than anything else. And they like what they see, because we want people that have a passion to build and create and do something really nice. That to them is first and foremost. The compensation comes with it. Obviously, the better you are, the more you can make. And getting back to the other point too, that gives them the opportunity for growth at the right company.
So the branding is helping on both fronts, on the customer front and on the talent front.
For us, 100%.
Yeah. But what's probably, not to dive too deep onto this, but without the rest of you guys answering, but probably that mindset of being focused on the branding, that's like a long-term vision kind of position. That's where you're looking like, okay, like we have this machine, it's running, and we want to make sure that the field is clear ahead of us for the next few years. So we want to make sure that we are positioned as the creative design company that has excellent craftsmanship, transforms your lifestyle, and people want that, and people want to work for us. I kind of feel like if I'm a younger company, I might be more inclined to be more focused on leads to fill that pipeline to book, because you guys are all three of you, you're all booking into next year, like well into next year. So you're not that you're not hungry. That's not what I'm saying, but like you're not as hungry as someone who's booking 6 to 8 weeks out,
But the branding does drive sales, and that's obviously critical for all of us as well. You still need to have the sales coming in, but proper branding definitely drives sales. I mean, there's no question about it. People see you and recognize the company because I only started putting a lot into social media in the last couple of years, but I'm already seeing a big difference from, the standard. I don't know if anybody runs ads in some magazines anymore. I don't, but I'm doing everything online, and I'm finding that, again, it's driving sales. I mean, sales is critical, of course, We're trying to book way in advance. In the last few years, we're trying to work like the fashion industry, you know, that you're way ahead in terms of seasons. So that's why this year it's working out. Last year, the same, that we're bringing in clients that understand. As a matter of fact, we're promoting it when they call in. We tell them there's a certain delay on the proposals. There's going to be a delay in when the work will be done. And we ask every client now, it's in the sort of the screening, when are you looking to do this work? Right out front, we're setting the expectation that it's going to be next year, because that's how we're going to keep building, moving forward, always way, way ahead. So the branding pushes the sales, and I think that's the most critical point.
Adrian, you're heavy on brand too, right? Just I'm going off our previous conversations. That's your main focus?
Yeah, I was going to pick up on one of the things that you said.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Go for it.
I think when it comes to branding, I think companies like the three of us are in a lot different situation than the upstart landscape companies. I mean, you know, the first 5 years in business, you're taking any scraps available. You're lifting and relaying patio slabs and transplanting trees and putting in, you know, curb edging, all that kind of stuff. Things that those people call us now, we look at it and go, something's going on with our branding. We got to change our branding, right? We're trying to make our website and social media look so luxurious that we don't get that phone call, right? So, but the you know, if I were to start a landscape company today, I should have no illusions that I'm going to be doing a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 job. Like, it just doesn't happen. So, so to your point, your interest is in just straight up lead generation. You can't get into branding. I mean, you don't have a brand. I mean, you know, unless you ripped off your old company's photos, you can't show a photo of what you're capable, even though you're capable of building, perhaps because you've worked for another company. You got nothing to show. So, so it's quite a different conversation when you're talking to us three versus where we were 20 years ago, let's say. You know, and so if we're trying to speak for the new upstart landscape company, what should they be doing? Probably lead generation, you know? Just try to get phone calls. I mean, we were there, Yellow Pages back in the day. You know, try to be the biggest ad in the Yellow Pages. You know, I remember those days. You know, and put an A in front of your name so that you're, you know, bulked to the front of the, you know, but
he was just treeing before.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. So, but so over the course of 20 years, you know, you have new challenges. Like over the last 10 years, our biggest challenge was, okay, we only have whatever, 10 crews, let's say, a while back, 10 crews. Well, we're getting 100 leads. Well, that's not good because we can't have 15 salespeople when we only have 10 crews. So you got to find it. So we go to our marketing department or the company, Compass Creative. They did our marketing and we presented them with our problem. Okay, so we don't have a problem getting phone calls, but it's costing us too much to get rid of all these phone calls. So, you know, and so they start designing a marketing campaign that is going to increasingly make us more luxurious looking than maybe perhaps than we even are. Like they're always setting the bar. You know, you're promoting your best material, but it's almost like just ahead of where you actually are. That's always kind of what marketing does. But anyway, that's my little, you know, everybody's going to take a little bit of a different approach to this. The well-established companies are going to presumably keep doing what they're doing and promote their brand, and the smaller companies are just going to focus on lead generation.
And what about on the yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I'm not going to challenge that, but just because I do work with smaller companies, I think, you know, one thing I've noticed with a couple companies I work with, how they present themselves, truck wise, trailer wise, uniform, like they're professional looking. They're not out there with cut off jean shorts, muscle shirts. Like they have nice collared shirts. They look respectable. And really, some of the companies I talked about, they have gotten those $200,000, $300,000 hardscapes, but they're not doing all the work. They're outsourcing design, they're outsourcing some engineering, and they're sticking to what they're good at, which is the install, not necessarily the design engineering sets. And they're presenting themselves in a professional manner when they're like people see you, and that's their first impression. So if you're driving around with a beat up truck with, putty on the side and decals, tearing off, you're coming across cheap. And your presentation as far as how you look is really, really important. And, it's going to attract other employees as well. And I really think that is key, is having something that looks, Adrian, you're saying as far as being above what you are, you're looking like a $10 million company, but you might only be $1 million company. And look around your area. What are those companies that are the larger companies? What do they look like? And I think they're simple. They're not, all this branding is all the, crazy decals all over the place. That's not branding. You want to get your name out. You don't want to confuse your client as well. You want to be simple as possible, but you want to catch the eye and you want to look professional. And I think that's the best advice I could give to a smaller company, because you'll stand out. Landscapers in our area, we have some really good ones, and then we have some not so good ones, and the not so good ones come across looking like they don't look so good. And I think cheap. It's important. Yeah.
Cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's okay. Like, it's fine for us to say like the real word. Like if you come across looking cheap, you will get cheap customers.
Yes.
Which will limit whatever success you could have with your business. Good times, bad times, it doesn't matter. The types of customers, the personalities of the people will still be there. So if you want the higher end customer, you need a more refined, more high end look, which is not loud and brash. Typically, it's a little more understated, a little more subtle, but clean and professional. And I think that's a good piece of advice, because it's not hard to do that. There are much harder things to do with regards to marketing and branding your business than to just have a nice, clean, professional look. That's something that you're 100% in control of.
We used to have a groundhog as like our on our trucks and our trailers.
On your logo or something?
Yes, it was awful. And it was so
exactly what I want for my yard.
Yeah, groundhog that destroys everything. But we were like all into like, he's gonna hold a shovel, hold a snow shovel, hold a blower. Like, it came across cheap, and we nixed them or nixed him probably, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. And then that's when, I don't know if that was the shift, but we stopped coming across cheap. And like, we're all professionals out there. So look like a professional if you want to be treated like a professional.
Yep. So in the last 10 years or so, 15 years, you've laid yourself off and a groundhog.
Yes.
Right? For keeping
Actually,
score.
I think we buried the groundhog.
We had the groundhog.
We had we had a mascot uniform and everything. It would go to like picnics, and it was awful. It was bad. It was really bad.
What, a mascot?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Holy mountains.
It was bad. I'll send you pictures.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'd like to see that. I would.
Use that as the thumbnail for this episode.
Don't, please. We buried
Good,
him.
Alex. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
But despite, even though one thing, and I think everybody said it, even with these companies you say that are startups and they have a good image, and I've noticed that too, that when I started out, I was one of the first companies, it's going to really age me, but we had all the same T-shirts on with our name on it, and guys, and nobody was doing that. Everybody wore whatever, and we had magnets on the side of the truck identifying us. But I remember buying T-shirts, and I had trouble finding a guy. But other guys were looking at me like, "What's with the T-shirts? Why do you all look the same?" And that's kind of, I started seeing a shift maybe 10 years ago, at least locally, that guys are really pretty sophisticated for startups. I mean, trucks that are skinned and good logos, but all of that's not worth much to sustain if they still don't know numbers. It all goes back to that as well. If they don't know their numbers, they don't know how to price, they don't understand how to recover overhead, they won't survive either. And we've seen a lot of companies out here going bankrupt. And, customers are looking for them the next year and they've gone out of business. There's been a lot in the maintenance end out here in Montreal and have also gone bankrupt because when the fuel prices went up, a lot of them appears they started analyzing their costs finally and realized they're not making a cent. And every week would go by mid-season where a client would say, the guy who was cutting my lawn says he has to get out. He can't do it anymore. I think there must have been 8 or 10 companies. So obviously all these years they're bringing in cash flow, but they weren't making any money, but now they're realizing it. So I'm just saying all the best intentions in branding and the image, if you will, without knowing numbers, they still won't sustain. I mean, any business, it's normal.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. If you're looking to do surcharges and change order people to death, it's not going to work. Price things the way it needs to be. If there's a change in scope, then a change order. But like for us, like you got to stand behind what you do. And, we all make mistakes with estimates. That's why we have an estimator now instead of salespeople doing estimates. But, stand behind your work. Don't change order somebody to death. Like go in less expensive just to get your foot in the door. You're going to end up just making that client angry because it's like a bait and switch. And it comes back to our core values too, and just being a good person and making sure that you're as truthful up front and not trying to slip something in. Like you've got to be honest. And, I was told years ago, like, listen, if you put a fuel surcharge on any of your quotes, you might as well just cross it off because you might get that money, but I'll never do business with you again. And is it right? I don't know. But we don't put fuel surcharges on stuff that we already had quotes on. I think you have to prepare for all that stuff. And that comes back to knowing your numbers and budgeting. Every one of our departments has a budget. Our turf PHC has a budget, our hardscape has a budget, our landscape has a budget. That supervisor has that budget and is running and is trying to hit those numbers with the KPIs every week too, seeing where they're at. They're in control of that. And then if they fall short, what are you going to do to pick up the slack? So, just knowing your numbers and then, you guys are talking about transparency and stuff. That's huge. I haven't tried it with the clients, Glenn. But I think that's pretty cool. I think you'd said that you do that and the net profit. I've had that conversation with a couple business people, because they're like, well, geez, why the other guy's charging $30 an hour. Why are you charging $109 an hour? A lot of times we don't show our hourly price, but what's the difference? Well, listen, that guy is not making any money. He's probably working out of his mom's house. Like you can't separate yourself. And really, like at the end, like net, I mean, this is all we're getting. And it's a good conversation. So knowing your numbers, getting a budget set up and getting a plan is important.
But as soon as we started telling customers about I think 3 years we've been doing it now, we actually noticed it could be coincidental, but there's been an increase in sales. But they also told us that they appreciate the transparency. And right away, I could sense that they were more trustworthy of working with us for the long term, because we were showing them what the margins were. And it shows them you're very professional because you know your numbers. You understand how to run a business, because at the end of the day, it's great if they get a good deal, but if you're not there to honor your work, they're not getting good value out of that.
Yeah. All of this is a good segue into the sales topic that I wanted to hit. If we expect that, let's say recession does hit, and people are tighter with their money, that means that sales would technically be tougher to come by, either in number of sales or in value of individual sales. Your average ticket will come down. What are some of the things that, well, A, do you agree with that statement? And then B, what are you doing about that?
We just met about that. And actually what we're thinking, and again, we'll see, is that maybe, and this is why, again, it goes to knowing your numbers. And at the same time, we won't discount anything. I would rather get less calls, which is what's happening. And in a way, it's refreshing because, as I said before, it was way too much to handle. But we're getting less calls, more qualified calls, we like to believe, because of the branding. I would rather do less work but still maintain the proper margins rather than having to try to make up the difference by taking on more volume of work. I'm not comfortable doing that. That's why I won't adjust my pricing. I won't lower it.
But how do you sell in a market where, like, okay, we get the marketing, the branding that helps get the ideal customers talking to, but how do you sell in a market where people are trying to save, but you want to preserve your margins and you have a budget that you need to hit to keep the business going? Like, is there anything you're doing exceptionally well that you need to keep doing, or things that you want to remind your team, like, we have to get better at?
Selling, again, getting in front of the right clients that are buying what we're selling, value, craftsmanship, quality. We use a questionnaire. We changed a question in our mandates and our questionnaire for the design. And we ask in one area, I know it almost sounds horrible, but we're asking clients to rate sort of in order of importance to them, different elements like budget or pricing versus quality, creativity. And when we get a client in the initial phases of designing, that indicates that pricing is their first and foremost concern. And it should be for everybody, but we actually now kind of, we vet them. We basically suggest that maybe we're not the right client for them, that the right client, the right company for them, that it's maybe not the best fit because it's not what we love to do. And obviously, if that's their most important item on their wish list, it's not really the kind of client that we go after and it's not a matter of how much money we're making, more so this is what we love to do. We want to be able to be creative in the designs, and that builds up your reputation, obviously, when you do,
and that supports the brand. It
work.
Perpetuates
Pardon me?
Yeah. And that perpetuates the brand after in the messaging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make sure. We just had a client recently that she was even discussing, as Adrian said, I'm actually raising my design fees. I think they are too low. And it's a way, again, to sort of qualify the right client, because if they're willing to invest, X dollars, I wish I was charging what Adrian's charging. He's smarter than me. But for what we give them, I think we're giving them great value. But if they're willing to invest in that, then they're probably the right kind of client, but we're asking the right questions. So yes, I mean, we're looking for that type of client that is not the number one concern. Budget is important to everybody. But we found for us, we know what the profile of our client, and that's not their most important, the most important aspect of dealing with our company is not the price. It's value.
Yeah.
And
Alex, I suspect,
Go ahead.
Brad, you're first.
No, go ahead.
I suspect all of our opinions are going to change depending on how bad the recession gets, right? So, like, you're asking us a question now, and it's really hard given the sheer volume of calls we're getting. But, like, if we're sitting around next April, let's say, and we're getting one phone call in a week, we're probably putting all our effort into that phone call. Like, assuming we're not booked out that far. If we're booked out for the year, I'm taking Glenn's strategy and saying, sorry, I'm not changing my price. But the closer you start getting eventually to where you're booking, and you got all these people to keep on, if you have no work in the pipeline, like, you're going to have to do something. You could have this idea that you're not touching your price at all, but eventually you might, right? Because it's going to end up becoming a choice between laying off your staff or trying to keep busy. So, it's not an easy time to be talking about this because we're coming out of literally the best years ever. So we're used to trying to find ways to get rid of clients. Like, don't really like what you look like, or, what, you think price is important? Nah, you're probably not for us, but that could all change by next spring or next summer.
Yeah. So what are the things that have worked for you in terms of securing the sales? Like, I'm just going to look at my list here, but, like, is it offering, more creative designs, or really emphasizing differentiation through the creativeness of the design? Is it offering projects in phases, trying to phase it out, or discussing financing options, or presenting different versions of the same project, like a good, better, best scenario, just to kind of stack the odds in your favor, in that sales process?
Alex, I do want to go back a little bit just to what we were talking about. And Adrian, I totally agree with you. And I think with knowing your numbers, in 2018, I had like 8 budgets, and it was worst case scenario, the better case scenario, the better case scenario, that I made sure that our employees were going to be employed. And, I think it's a sheer numbers thing. And I think it's this law of averages. So, if you're only getting 5 calls, well, yeah, you're going to try to make some friends because you never know what it's going to turn into. But how are you self-generating leads? That's the biggest thing we started at the beginning of the year. Like, what all of our salespeople have to be a part of a group, whether it be volunteering, whether it be, a local chamber, just something. How are you self-generating leads and not just waiting for the phone to ring? Because to me, if you're just waiting for the phone to ring as a salesperson, that's not giving me any value. Like, when we bring people in, we want to train them, we want to build them up so that they can go out into the community and bring stuff back, which keeps our marketing costs down as well. But you're getting to know different people. So I think that's really important to think about. And the worst case scenario budgets, who knows, it may come down to that, but at least hey, we'll be safe if we get down to this point. But knowing that ahead is going to relax some of that anxiety, and then you can breathe a little bit and making sure that you're going in the right direction. Again, no knee-jerk reactions. You have a plan just in case.
So a cost-effective method of building our reputation is being in associations, being in groups, being part of your local church, Rotary Club, whatever, Chamber of Commerce. These are opportunities to meet with other people who have money to potentially spend in their backyard, front yard, driveway, whatever service you're offering.
Yep.
Costs you just your time. Not that your time's not worth something, but at least you're not out of pocket,
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by hardscaper.com. The Hardscaper mission is to empower industry professionals with the skills, inspiration, and confidence they need to take their businesses to new heights. Struggling with training programs for your team? Looking for helpful tips to build a better company? Subscribe today to gain access to hours of interactive on-demand hardscape construction and business courses for free. Check out hardscaper.com.
What I'm curious is, like, in terms of like, you're in that sales situation, you're going to present to the customer. The phone rang 5 times this week. It used to ring 50. You got to close this thing. Not at any expense. Like, you need to be profitable. We've already covered all the reasons why. What are the tactics that you experienced business owners have up your sleeve that help you achieve that? So I'll run through the list again, just as a reminder. Like, is it phasing out the projects? Is it discussing different payment options, financing options? Is it having a good, better, best scenario of like, well, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. If you like this, we could scale it back with this. Like, how do you go into it so that you're walking out of there with a sale? No matter what it is, it's profitable. There's different ranges, but you're still happy that you got the deal.
Phasing for us has always been something we've done. So somebody wants a $500,000, oasis in their backyard, but they only have 200,000 or 100,000 or 50,000, 10,000, whatever. Phasing's always been something, having that master plan and kind of working towards it. So that's helped. A mentor told me back in the day that telling's not selling. And, when we're selling a project, like, we're solving some problems for the homeowner. So we're asking a lot of questions instead of just throwing up information on them. It's all about asking the right questions and really getting to know that person. So you have a personal relationship with that client instead of just the one-off job and that's it. You want to create relationships, and, relationships, emotions. I mean, that's what a lot of times sell the job. It's not how much stuff you told the person and how excited you thought you got them. I really believe it's getting to know your client on a personal level and understanding how they're made up, which is going to help you navigate through the design phase and everything else and really figure out what makes that person tick and speak into that and help them, create that, the project that they want. But ultimately they want a feeling of happiness, whatever the feeling is, and how do you create that? And I think that's important with the questions that you ask.
And trust
the
in
questions?
your company
Yeah,
as
okay.
well. That they trust you, they have confidence in the company, you've been around all those years. And again, I think that's if you're gaining their confidence. That's what we feel with customers too. We do phasing as well. So we give them an investment package that we show them how it can be phased out from a build aspect so we don't double work the job, which they appreciate, and they see that they can slowly do that project if they want over multiple seasons, or they don't even have to finish it, but we'll always are. So the designers work with them as what we call a landscape investment advisor. They tell them, we can build it this way. We can phase it in different phases for you. If your budget is X dollars for this year, we can do this, this, and this, give you the biggest bang for the buck. And, when you want to continue, you can call us back and we have everything on file. We'll go to the next phase. What we also do, we don't really finance anything, because when I once brought that up, to be honest, to some of my clients, they got insulted when I use the word finance. When I do offer that, I use the words, I think we're calling it a pay option, not finance.
Okay.
They like the word pay option much better. When I say finance, one gentleman got very upset and said, I don't need financing. Don't talk to me like that. I have money. I could buy your company. I remember I got a lecture. So it became a pay option. If you want, I have this pay option, and I learned that the hard way. But we do phase it, and what we offer them is from 1 year to the next. We will give them what we call a price promise. Certain elements are frozen in price and will absorb up to X amount each season. So it's worked really well, and they keep coming back. And they know that they can phase it out. And if they call back a couple of years later, the price is always, that price promise goes back one season. So to be honest, it's built into the pricing of the job anyways. It's there anyways, but they know they can phase it. And I find customers
options.
find that extremely comforting. Sorry?
Yeah. It's the options. By providing them the options, that's where they feel more comfortable, and they feel like you're trying to do your best to serve them.
Yes.
Adrian,
Exactly.
you ever insult a customer over a sales call?
What's that?
I asked Adrian if you ever insulted a customer over a sales call.
Oh, I'm sure I have. I don't have a good story like that one, but we've always stayed away from financing. But I think your question about the sales tactics, I think any salesman, I do sales, I love sales. Any salesman, regardless of whether we're in a good economy or a bad economy, wants to make the sale. And once you've vetted that client and they're a reasonable fit for your company, you want that sale, whether it's $1 million job and they only have a $500,000 budget, or if it's a $300,000 job with a $100,000 budget, like, you'll find a way to get the deposit. I mean, that's just the thrill of the kill for a salesperson, right? And so all these options that we're talking about, taking out features or phasing the project, or using a lower brand paving stone, or
I don't know what that means.
yeah,
Don't do that.
all your competitors. Anyway, but
It's
you
like
know
the
what I'm
last
talking about. Like,
resort. That's
yeah, exactly.
You're walking out the door, and you're like, well, I can also do that.
yeah, yeah. Or some clients are even willing to, let's say, do some of the work themselves, planting or whatever. I mean, that's sort of back in the day, we had more clients like that. Our clients don't really want to do that anymore. But yeah, I think I'm not sure the sales tactics are going to change going into recession. Perhaps there's a little bit more work for your sales person, because they're going to put a little bit more effort into following up regularly. Now, it's kind of like you send a quote or a proposal out there, and if they get back, fine. If they don't, good, because they don't fit the schedule anyway. It's kind of like that's
the world you're in today.
that's
Yeah.
the world we've been in. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. I also found that what we started doing, and again, I think like Adrian said, it may change depending if and when we do have a recession and how bad it is, but we won't drop price. We'll add value to the client. And that's worked really well to get projects. For example, with a project recently. The client was saying, well, can you, I really want to deal with you and you're more expensive, but I know the reputation and my friend used you. What can you do? We said, okay, I'll tell you what, we have a horticultural care division. So we said, look, if you sign the agreement, we'll throw you in whatever, 3 months of horticultural care service, or do the lighting on top of it. So we're upselling right away. If you install lighting while I'm there, I'll tell you what, I'll add 5 more units. To me, the cost is minimal. But yet I'm not only selling lights now or selling horticultural services, but I've given them value, which is obviously not worth the same to me, but it's worth a lot more to them. But we've been pretty firm that we won't touch the price. We'll add value by those services or giving something to them. I was taught that actually by a consultant a long, long time ago, and it works quite well for us. Not every client, but it works.
You got to be careful with just cutting your price and not having a reason. So the adding value, 100%. Don't go in with a quote and then all of a sudden you drop your quote by $5,000 and there's no reason, because then there's a trust issue for sure. Like there has
the whole
to be
thing is out the window.
Yeah, it is, and there has to be a reason why.
You ask for a discount on something and they give it to you, you immediately start.
Why didn't you give me that
yourself,
great price right up front?
More? Like,
yeah.
I mean, exactly. Exactly. That's what's happened. When I first started in business, I remember we wanted to work, and I think we met somebody else's price, and it was a pretty drastic drop in price. To be honest, I really didn't know my numbers then. All I knew was I wanted the job just because I thought it was a cool job. And I actually didn't get it because the client, who was a pretty successful business person, turned around and said exactly that. They said, so wait a minute. So you just dropped whatever, $15,000? That means you were ripping me off before. I'm not doing business with you. I don't trust you anymore. Never forgot that. So that's another reason I'm not playing with numbers. I'll add value. I just won't move on the price. I know the price is fair.
That's a good one. If you had to pick, because we talked about, let me look at my notes here. When we said a well-run company would probably do well going into the next few months, few years, and just in general, there were 5 things. Take care of your people, know your numbers, get rid of debt, which you do when the times are good. It's a little harder to do when the times are lean. Marketing, make sure you're marketing all the time to create that positioning for yourself and create that demand for your business. And preparedness for the bad times well before they hit, which means basically doing all of those things continuously and monitoring them and continuously trying to improve on all facets. If you had to pick one to focus on first, is it operational or is it revenue? Meaning, is it bringing money in, like focus on marketing and sales? Because I only have limited time and energy myself as a small business owner. Or is it really like focus on making sure that all of our stuff is together, it's running well, because if that's running well, then my numbers are predictable and I can work through it. Or am I completely off base and like that's not even a question to ask right now?
I think marketing and sales.
Well, revenue does drive everything else, eh?
Yeah, marketing and sales, like it'll get you out of some jams. Like you can sell yourself out of a jam, and if you don't have the leads, it doesn't matter if you have a really great company that's well run. If you don't have the leads, it means nothing. So I believe, on the marketing and sales end, that's gotten us out of a lot of jams in the past. Is it all comes back to sales in those situations. So I would be focusing on that versus, hey, let's get all of our systems and processes right. I think ramping, getting all your salespeople, the right salespeople, and making sure you're doing the right thing on the marketing side is way more important. Nobody
Adrian,
agrees with me.
Agree? Disagree?
Yeah. You asked.
So I'm a sales guy at heart. So like,
well,
right
so am I actually.
Me too.
That's what I do.
Me too.
You asked the question, do one thing, right? So which is obviously not a fair question, because any reasonable company would do everything, and you wouldn't probably even priority rank them. You would just get that guy to do this, and you get that guy to do that, and you would literally do everything at once. But
what if it's me and two guys listening to the show right now? I don't have all these guys to delegate to.
Yeah, well, that's a big difference. That's absolutely right. And then I would agree with what's been said. It's absolutely sales. I mean, you don't really have the opportunity to cut overhead or when you're two guys, I mean, you have no overhead. You are literally doing everything yourself.
Yeah.
You are already as efficient as you can be. I mean, there's no better efficiencies than an owner-operator company. You don't get it better than that. But so in that case, the only thing you can do is go after sales.
Sell.
But I look at a looming recession as an opportunity to either pick up new employees, from companies that have to cut, or maybe companies that go out of business. And I also look at an opportunity to perhaps get rid of the 10% worst employees you might have. Now, I mean, I would put our team up against any company out there. We have an amazing team, and yet, you sometimes overlook maybe a little bit of a care. Like you can always priority rank your employees and cut out let's say the 10% worst of them and possibly look for upgrades. And so, and there's other efficiencies that you can, if you're not that busy, what happens when you're super busy is you start to get into you can anyways get into some bad habits. And so, slowing down your business and focusing on it a little bit more is probably not a horrible thing for a company of our size to go through. Smaller companies, perhaps they don't need to as much, but anyway, I rambled on there a little bit.
No, but
Good.
it's an interesting perspective. Like and it comes down kind of the same thing as that marketing discussion before. Like you can focus on brand when you have a strong pipeline coming in, because now you want to position yourself that all the water coming through the pipe is the type of water you want. It's nice, clean, cold water. But if you want hot water, well, you're going to put that pipe somewhere else. But if that pipe is always flowing, you can focus on that aspect. If there's nothing coming through the pipe, hot water, cold water, you don't care. You just want something. So you're going to shift your focus there. It's kind of the same thing right now with this discussion, because if everything's rolling really well and it's calming down, but it's not alarming. Cash flow levels are good. Profitability is good. Revenue is good. All this stuff is good. Then you have the opportunity to say like, okay, well, maybe we should be tweaking this thing. Maybe we should be looking at, trimming down our team a little bit, getting a little tighter, getting a little leaner, a little more efficient, because things are a little rougher out there, but nothing alarming. And that allows you to be strong financially, because now, whatever wasteful activities or people or whatever exist in your organization, you found a way to eliminate them or reduce them significantly. Now you have more money. And when those opportunities come to either acquire more talented people or grow your company or acquire new pieces of equipment or outright acquire competitors, you are in that position now. You're not if you're never looking at this stuff. I think ultimately it's the main takeaway is like you continuously have to be looking at the state of your business and continuously looking at these different levers and seeing like which ones are we tweaking today. But you can never really take your foot off the gas with these things.
No.
Good times or bad times.
Yeah. And Alex too, on the sales end, everybody should be salespeople. Like, everybody can sell at Newcastle. We'll help them get estimates together. So the more people you get involved with sales, pay them commission. It's a good way to get people. If anybody comes to me and says, hey, I'm having problems paying my electric bill, my sewer bill, hey, why don't you give me a couple leads and we'll start training you how to sell. And I have 4 full-time salespeople, and I have about 12 other people that sell as well. And the more you can empower your people to sell work, which is going to help them and help us, I think it's important because they're going to tap into their networks that you wouldn't even get to hunt for, because maybe they are struggling a little bit. And it's been something, I mean, we've done since 2008 is get everybody selling. And it doesn't have to all be hardscapes, these $100,000 jobs, but a $4,000 job here, $8,000 job there. Like, it helps that backlog, keep full. And that's our number one measure, is the backlog. And if the backlog gets below 5 weeks, man, we got to start rolling here. And I think having other people sell is really, really important, and allowing them and giving them an opportunity to grow. I mean, you have 4 people on this podcast that are all salespeople. What does that tell you? It tells you sales is a way to grow. And if you can help your people grow, I mean, that's how I was able to grow. I got into sales. I'm like, well, I guess I'll sell. And all of a sudden I start climbing the ladder, because you start talking to more people, you start figuring out more problems for people, and your worth is a lot greater. And it's a good experience for everybody.
Fifth. I have so many questions about having so many people sell jobs.
Well, it can be a little bit of a disaster.
On the maintenance side, on a maintenance side, like even just on a maintenance side, you can lose your shirt.
Yeah, well, yes, if you don't have the right pricing structure, like we have, everything's set as far as how we price, especially on the maintenance side. It's either square footage or whatever. And there's always, I run by it, our sales manager runs through it. Like, it's not just they're out throwing numbers all over the place.
Okay.
We have basically a matrix.
Had a little heart attack.
Yeah, no. See, my Adderall's wearing off. I mean, it's 5 o'clock. My Adderall's wearing off. I'm losing focus. But it's cool. And you know what I really love as like a sales guy that did production is when you put a production guy into sales, because they're always bitching and complaining about the salespeople. I mean, that's what production does. So to get them in that role, and then miss the notes and miss the pictures, miss the measurements, and they didn't shoot the grades right, it makes my heart swell. But it makes them see it makes them see the other side of it, which they don't see. So now that sales production divide, it's a little softer now, because they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know you did that. And I think it helps that as well.
I think that's an important thing, just from building a good team culture, where, people understand what each other's roles are and what they entail. Like some even if it's limited exposure to the cross training.
Yeah.
We even have this, I just had a meeting earlier today where it was the sales directors and the marketing directors, and we were arguing over what we need to do going into next year. And we have very different perspectives. And I did sales for a long time, but now I'm on the marketing side. And I understand the difference between the two worlds. So I was playing kind of peacekeeper between the two sides. I'm like, I get what you're saying. But really, like, we need to do something that encompasses both of these, not just one. So I think it's important that point. It doesn't really tie into recession, but it just ties into a good company. And like we said before, good companies would survive a recession technically. If we want to wrap this up, because I think we've touched on a lot of subjects, but if we want to wrap this up and say, biggest piece of advice or biggest thing to watch out for, or whatever motivational thing, whatever you want to say as like a final statement to wrap us up and take us out of here today, what would you say?
I read a lot of books, or I listen to a lot of books on Audible, and don't waste the pain. If you go through, a struggle, make sure you're learning through it, and don't just try to like get through it, to get on the other side. Really live in the moment, because if you do go through a really, really hard time and you waste that pain, which means you don't do anything different moving forward, you're going to go through that same pain again. So really focus on like what's going wrong. Like, I do a lot of journaling. And I do, even in my phone, in my iPhone, and the date, I'll just put my feelings down for that date. Not feelings like feelings, but what's going wrong. And
Mr. Tough Guy over here.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers. He was a Marine though, I believe. But anyway, but just make sure you're writing down stuff somewhere, because you can go back to that then and relive that whole thing. I mean, as we're talking, I'm reliving 2008. I'm reliving 2018. I didn't forget about that. That has made me do what I'm doing today because I didn't waste that pain. You know, you got to make some changes, and that's the biggest advice I can give anybody is just don't waste the pain. You're going through something, make it worth your while in the end, and you'll be better because of it. It's the companies that just can't get through that pain and they want everything easy. That's not going to happen. You got it, you know, as a business owner, you got to get through those struggles and come out on the other side with better systems, better processes, better ways of doing things, which is going to then propel you above everybody else. And everybody's stuck down here, and then you're at the next level. So you got to be definitely a visionary looking at the future.
But what always comes to my mind, though, is what I feel over the years that what I learned that I thought was sort of most valuable, even though it would kind of sound strange, is learning the right time. Learning, which I didn't do very well when I started, is learning to say no, or when to say no to jobs or to certain clients. Got myself into a lot of trouble by saying yes all the time. And again, which we've all said many times, I wish I knew, when I started anyways, I wish I knew all about the value of systems from processes and systemizing everything. We made a big effort many, many years ago to systemize pretty well everything. And I think it's been huge for us. I mean, we have systems for every single process we do, and we find that the team likes it. It helps us grow and scale correctly. And knowing numbers. That's something that for the longest time, I didn't know numbers. I mean, I had no idea if I was making money. I still remember my accountant. I changed accountants. He's still my accountant today, actually, and he was known to work with people in the industry, and he started talking about overhead and then showing me what my overhead recovery would have to be. And I remember I was freaked out, like I wanted to quit. I remember telling my wife, how are we going to make money? Because he's telling me, my overhead recovery is whatever, 27%. I couldn't figure it out, but that if I knew that way back, it would have been a lot easier. But like basically we were saying, you have to fail to succeed too. I learned from it, so to me it was very worthwhile. Those mistakes, and I keep making mistakes, but what's that expression? You either win or you learn. That's the way I look at it. I gave you 3, not 1. Sorry. Very undecisive.
Well, technically it was 4 because you have to.
4. Sorry. Damn.
You're adding value, not discounting.
There you go. I added value. I'll give you another one. No chart. No, it's okay.
Adrian, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess the biggest recap is to try to build a strong business while you're having good times so that you can withstand it. I think the other thing I would say is, I agree with Brad's point. Don't waste the opportunity. You're going to go through some hard times. Don't waste it. But the last one I would say is, and we learned this in 2008, be agile, be able to pivot. Don't be so stuck in your ways that you're prepared to go down with your ship because this is the only way you do things. We got into commercial. We were not a commercial landscape company, but we were forced into it. We weren't getting the phone call, so we had to go and beat the bushes to try to find some work. And so I think if there's any advice I'd give people out there is to stay agile, stay hungry, look for opportunities. There's lots of different opportunities out there, and hopefully that allows you the business to get through. And I would be okay. We've talked a lot about not cutting margin. I would be okay to break even for a year or 2 if necessary to keep my employees, because recessions come and go. But if you can maintain your employees through it, maybe even grow your employee base, you'll come out on the other side stronger than most.
That's a strong statement, though, to say like you're willing to break even for a year or 2 to ensure that the team remains intact and is able to continue to progress and grow. was writing. I'm writing everything down, but that I mean,
it's being recorded, right?
I did want to say we did that. Like we set up budgets to break even, in hard years. Like and we built a great team because of it. So you do have to be agile. And if you have to break even, listen, you're covering your costs, you cover your overhead, you're covering everything. You might have to. Like it's one of those things.
But I think like it's important, and again, it comes back to the knowing your numbers discussion, which like we have a whole course on that. We have a bunch of episodes on that too. So like we're not going to get into that, but as the business owner, you can still pay yourself a salary, and that the business can still break even, and you can still be paid. There isn't any other profit left over at the end, right?
Yeah.
So like it doesn't mean that you have to forfeit a salary for years to be able to do it. You might have to for a bit, but that shouldn't be the case.
No.
Well, it could be.
It could be.
It could be. And I think business owners bear that responsibility. I mean, everybody talks about how great it is to own a business, but there's a chance that, when things go bad, they can go quite bad. Like a lot of business owners are quite leveraged. And so, it might hurt a little bit. So be prepared for it. Maybe you have to cut your wife's spending budget a little bit.
Glad you. I'm not going to ask that question, but
No.
Glenn, you made a reaction when he said a lot of businesses are leveraged quite a bit. But what were you thinking there?
No, it's just I'm thinking of some companies that have been buying, and they just feel it's all about buying toys, and I'm seeing them now over leveraging themselves and just buying equipment left, right, and center. And I think what we've all said the same thing in the background is I think all the time you should be running your business like tomorrow's going to be a recession. It shouldn't be just, hey, we might hit a recession. We have to make changes. I also think what Adrian said about pivoting, I mean, I guess we all pivoted it in some degree too during COVID because we didn't know what was going to happen, where we were going to end up. I mean, at one point I remember sitting where I'm sitting right now with my partner, and when we first were told we had to lock down, thinking we're in deep trouble here. What are we going to do? We were waiting for the customers to start canceling left, right, and center. We all know what happened, the total reverse. But I think you have to run your business every single day like tomorrow is going to be the worst. And I think Brad also said too about having reserve and, making sure you can survive for a few months. And for myself, I was also shaking my head. Yes, that if it came to that, I had to just break even, but could keep all the great people that we have and downsize and get rid of equipment, but to keep people at the end, I can rebuild on the other side, no problem. With the right people, that's really what it's going to take. So the growth part is not just the sales, it's the hiring. It's having the good people, because you can't really grow. Even if you get the sales, if you don't have good people, you don't have anything. You really don't.
I think to your point too, Glenn, like with the fear factor though, like I have a different mentality. I think if you're just focused on the fear of the recession, you're not going to be able to explore new options and take the risk. An entrepreneur is a risk taker. And, sometimes you do have to take that risk. And if you're swallowed up by fear, you're not even able to get out of bed. So there's definitely a happy medium there. You have to be aware of it, but I don't think you have to focus on the fear. Look at the opportunities out there, because there's going to be opportunities. It's just your job as an entrepreneur to find those opportunities and make them work for you.
But I think like a big part of it is like there's fear that might be justified, it might not. Depends who you are and depends who you ask. But at the end of the day, like there's the things that you can control and there's the things you can't. And you can't control interest rates. You can't control the market. You can't control how people feel. You can't control what your competitors do. You can't control the housing market. You can't control any of these things. What you can control are the 5 things that you guys highlighted. You can control how you take care of your people, how you invest in them, what equipment you have for them, what training you have for them, what benefits you have for them. how you speak to them, how you smile to them in the hallway, like you said. These are all things that you can control. You can control how well you know your numbers and how well you manage your numbers. You can control the level of debt and how leveraged you are. You are in control of that. You can control how you market, what the message is, how much you invest, where you spend those dollars. All that is true. And you can control for how prepared you can be for when the bad times hit. So at the end of the day, what is there to be scared of? If you're doing those things and you're taking control of the things that you control, who cares?
Kudos.
Correct. You got to try. You got to push forward.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've done the turn of everything. I can't think of anything else that we haven't hit other than getting into like really specific things on like, what are you buying and are you leasing, or are you financing, or what are you doing with that kind of stuff? But I think we'll save that for another conversation, if that's cool with you guys.
Yeah.
That work?
Sure.
All right.
Sounds good.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for your time here on a Friday afternoon. We definitely touched a lot of subjects. I think we have a few good little nuggets here for our listeners to be able to feel more confident going into the future. I think it also isn't as scary as it's kind of being touted to be so far. We'll see. You never know. But with what we are seeing and what you guys are seeing, especially that you are in the positions you're in, you have a great visibility over what the market's doing and how it's reacting and so on. So I think it's really just, let's be smart about what we do. Let's continue to push ahead. And I'll close with something that I did an Instagram live with Tom Reber, who's a consultant in our industry, in the home remodeling and construction industry in general. I did an Instagram live with him a couple months ago. And one of the things we were talking about, like, what do you do with the recession? And he gave me a great analogy. And he says, in the wild, when a storm is approaching, in the plains and the fields and whatever, the cows typically will try to run for shelter. They'll run for cover. And what inevitably happens is they're running and the storm is coming and the storm is moving faster than they can run. So they end up spending forever in the storm, and it's just this panicked, fearful situation. And the bison, their natural instinct is to charge towards the storm. I don't know why that is that way, but if you think about it, you charge towards that storm, you're definitely going to be popping out the other side way faster than the one who's running in the direction that the storm is going. And I think that that's probably the best way to look at it. And based on all the things that you guys are saying, you're all prepared to charge towards that storm. You're investing, you're pushing forward, you're ready to hire, you're ready to sell, you're ready to market, and you're ready to pivot and make different decisions to keep advancing rather than being stagnant and getting swallowed up. So I think that's really critical. And like I said, I want to thank you all for your time and bringing that experience and that insight to the table here today.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Each episode is all about taking the next step in running your business, so make sure you never miss a show by subscribing on your favorite podcast player. And if you're finding this information to be useful, help others in your position discover us by giving us a star rating and leaving a comment. We'll see you next week.